I went to my best friend's place for her birthday, and out of nowhere, she started complaining, "I'm so jealous of you." She said your boyfriend has basically no sex. Drive, mine's the complete opposite. He wanted it 7 times last night. I was crying so hard, I lost my voice, and he still wouldn't stop. I gave her a sympathetic smile. That just means he's crazy about you, unlike mine. He's practically celibate. Like a monk, she raised an eyebrow, casually stroking the $2 million ruby bangle on her wrist. "He's not bad," she said, a hint of smugness in her voice. "He was with his ex for 5 years, but he still chose to marry me behind her back. He was so afraid she'd push for marriage that he faked going bankrupt and told her he had ALS. The girl wouldn't let go, though. She sold her blood, her kidney, whatever it took to scrape together money for his treatment. She was working the graveyard shift at a factory while he and I were fooling around in a $20 million villa. I froze to help my boyfriend Derek Vance pay for his ALS treatment. I had done all of those things before I could even process it. The door opened, and a tall, sharply dressed man walked in. "Babe," he said, "I got that strawberry flavor you like. How about wearing that silk nightie tonight?" Our eyes met. I stood there, frozen in shock, a chill running down my spine. It was Derek Vance, the man who was supposed to be broke, bedridden, and dying of ALS. My best friend beamed, wrapping herself around Derek's arm. "Derek," she cooed my friend. Here was just saying her boyfriend has no sex drive. I was teaching her how to turn a guy on. You know what? Maybe we should show her one of our private videos? My breath caught, my heart felt like it was being crushed in a fist. I couldn't believe it. It was really Derek. Just last night, he'd been sick in bed, stuck in a rundown studio apartment, eating leftover bread, but now the floor beneath his feet was worth more than $1 million. He glanced at me coldly, then kissed my best friend on the forehead, his gaze low and husky. "You think she'd even get it?" he murmured. "The way you moan, the way your body just melts, the way you squeeze around me, babe." "Evelyn's right here." Mira giggled playfully, hitting his chest before heading into the kitchen to cut fruit. My eyes burned, my voice shook, as I asked, "How long have you been married?" Derek traced his fingers along my cheek, wiping away a tear. His face was calm and unbothered. 3 months. I faked going broke and getting sick because I wanted you to leave, but you wouldn't. You sold your blood and your kidney. You worked every night and day, just to pay for a disease I never had. I didn't have the heart to tell you. So you want out or not? My throat closed up, every ounce of strength drained from my body. We were together for 5 years. Why I remembered everything, how he worked himself sick, buying us an engagement ring, how he held me tight when we crashed the car glass, stabbing into his chest, while I walked away with a bruised knee. Derek looked at me standing there, wrecked, and something flickered in his eyes. 5 years, he said. "Aren't you bored?" "Mira gives me something you never could." Excitement, a chase. "You've been the same in bed. Since day one, she wanted to be my mistress, said she didn't care what people thought, but I couldn't stand her getting judged, so I married her. And honestly, sex is better when it's legal." My eyes went dry. He kept going, his voice dropping lower. "You really should learn from her. She's gorgeous, seductive at your dad's funeral. She was crying so prettily I got hard just watching. I couldn't help myself that night. You thought there was a mouse in the house. That was me and her. She was so scared you'd hear her moan that her whole face turned red. You should have seen her." God, the way he talked about Mira, his eyes burning with want. This was not a man with a low sex drive. This was not my Derek 5 years ago. When I said yes to his proposal, he spun me around laughing. "Evelyn, you really said yes. This feels like a dream now." He looked at me like I was nothing. And suddenly, I laughed, shaking broken. I ripped the ring off my finger and threw it at his face. It sliced his cheek, drawing blood. "Derek," I said, "we're done." He touched his face, looked at the ring on the floor, then back at me, his brow furrowed like he was surprised I'd actually thrown it. He bent down and picked it up. "You're mad," he said coolly. "A man can't be with one woman forever. You'll get used to it. See, that's where Mira's better than you. She knows when to push and when to pull back. Even when she's moaning like crazy underneath me, she still finds the breath to ask if my girlfriend would be jealous." That broke me. Tears poured down my face. My chest felt like it had been carved open. "Evelyn, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Mira came running back, panicked, dabbing at my tears with a napkin, her face full of concern. But the fresh red marks all over her neck told a different story. She'd bragged about having sex 7 times last night. She'd made fun of Derek's girlfriend for taking home leftovers from restaurants. And I'd never once suspected her. I laughed bitterly. "You took my first boyfriend in high school," I said, "and now you've taken my fiancé. Feels pretty good being the other woman, doesn't it?" Mira froze. Her face went white. You know everything. I forced a faint smile, my throat burning back when my ex-boyfriend cheated on me. He took private photos of me. I nearly fell into depression and almost jumped off a building. It was Mira who held my shoulders crying as she comforted me. Don't be scared. I'll always be by your side. She pulled me out of that darkness. There was guilt in her eyes, remorse. I thought she was hurting for me. Only later did I find out that the person my ex cheated with was my own drunk best friend. That's why she felt so guilty, even though I was in pain. I pretended not to know, just to spare her feelings, but reality slapped me hard across the face. She didn't just go after my ex-boyfriend, she went after my fiancé too. Evelyn, I'm so sorry I didn't know Derek was your boyfriend. Mira's eyes turned red. She reached out to hug me. Don't touch me. A wave of disgust hit me by the time I realized what I was doing. My hand had already slapped her across the face. Derek shoved me hard. His eyes were filled with rage. Evelyn, what the hell is wrong with you? I fell straight to the floor. My knee split open, tearing off a bloody chunk of skin. The pain made tears stream down my face. Derek glared down at me, cold disgust rising in. His eyes, I pursued Mira. He said, I'm the one who cheated on you. So why are you hitting her? She's been nothing but guilty about this. She cried and begged me not to break up with my girlfriend when she found out you were short on money. She sold her newest Chanel bag and her limited edition Dior lipstick when you collapsed from exhaustion and ended up in the hospital. She couldn't eat or sleep on that luxury cruise. She was desperate to rush back and take care of you. Tell me, Evelyn, what has Mira ever done to you? Derek's angry voice buzzed in my ears. My vision was blurry with tears. The only reason I was short on money and collapsed from overwork was because of him. But in his eyes, all the pain and suffering I had been through mattered less than Mira, just furrowing her brow. She stole my boyfriend, and somehow it had all become my fault. We were together for 5 years. They didn't add up to 3 months with her. I stumbled back to the rundown apartment in a daze. On the table sat a couple's photo in it. I was smiling at the camera. He had his arm around my waist, his head lowered, saying he would love me forever. The matching pajamas on the bed, he had picked them out with me. The red scarf, his birthday gift to me, knitted with his own hands. The memories shattered piece by piece, turning into countless blades. That cut me until I bled. Those moments had been so painfully bright. I wiped away my tears. I ripped the photo apart with all my strength. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a familiar number. I accept your terms, I said, but you have to help me do one thing first. The call ended. I bought a ticket to South City late that night. Long fingers pulled back the covers. A familiar scent filled the air. My body went stiff. I instinctively shrank back. Derek's strong hand gripped my waist. His hot breath fell against my ear. His voice was low and rough. Weren't you the one who wanted to learn new moves to please me? Why are you pulling away? My eyes were dry and burning. I forced a laugh. She's so wild, 7 times in one night. Isn't that enough to satisfy you? The air went dead, silent. Derek's brow furrowed. Why do you have to insult Mira like that? She was worried about you. She didn't want you to feel bad, so she made me come. Keep you company. What more do you want from her? He slammed the door and left. Half an hour later, my phone suddenly rang on the other end. Mira's tearful voice came through, soft and pleading. Derek, her voice broke the pitch, shot up like she'd just been slammed into. Derek's raspy voice followed. Now, do you understand why both your ex and I chose Mira over you? The way she moans? It's just too good. 2 men have left you. Maybe you should take a good look at yourself and figure out why you can't keep a man. I clenched the phone. My body wouldn't stop shaking back then when he held me tight, his eyes red. He said he's blind. He doesn't deserve you, Evelyn. That day, he nearly beat a man to death just to force my ex to delete my nude photos. But now he was saying things like this, ripping my heart apart. Derek suddenly laughed. Oh, by the way, you want to see those photos? I actually kept backups. Your technique was really bad. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The screen shattered. A sharp pain stabbed through my chest like someone had carved a piece right out of me. So even that had been a lie. The young love I thought had saved me was just something I made up in my own head. Outside rain poured down in sheets. I curled up in the rundown apartment, burning up with a fever. My aunt called her. Voice was frantic. Evelyn, someone took your mother's heart donor. The hospital said it was your boyfriend Derek Vance. He's taking the heart to save his wife's brother, and he had your mother kicked out of the VIP ward. My ears rang. My mind went blank. My mother's condition was deteriorating fast without a heart transplant. She wouldn't make it through tomorrow. I had waited 3 years on the transplant list. I had spent so much money. I had begged so many people. He knew all of that. And now, just to save Mira's brother, he didn't care whether my mother lived or died, drenched in the pouring rain, barely standing from the poor fever. I went to find him. I arrived at a luxury private room through the door. I heard his friends joking around, damn, Derek is really addicted to his wife. Listen to that, Hope. The couch doesn't break. The group burst out laughing. Then they turned to look at a screen. Phew. Derek still has these videos saved. Evelyn was so stiff and boring in bed. Derek put up with that for 5 years. No wonder he was losing his mind. My fingernails dug into my palms. Not only had he kept backups, he'd shared those private videos with other people. Pushing down the humiliation burning through me, I opened the door and walked in. Everyone froze. From a nearby partitioned area came the sound of a woman's gasps and Derek's raspy voice. I pulled back the curtain. I was about to speak. A lace bra flew through the air and hit me in the face. Get the hell out. Derek barked the order, yanking a blanket over Mira's body, his face twisted with anger, even though my heart had already gone numb. My eyes still turned red, my throat still burned. Give me back my mother's heart donor, I said, and I'll leave right now. Otherwise, I'll post everything online and I'll have Mira sent to prison by law. Mira's face was flushed. She looked up at Derek pitifully. Derek, just give Evelyn back the donor. I don't mind. Derek frowned. He glanced at me. Mira has only one brother. He's her only family, and you're her best friend, can't you? Just let her have this. Tears fell from my eyes despite myself. I screamed. Is my mother, not my only family. Her condition is really bad if she doesn't get the heart surgery. She won't make it through tomorrow. Derek's pupils contracted slightly. His brow twitched at the sight of my tear-streaked face. His gaze shifted. Then he said coldly, You want the heart donor, fine, but you insulted Mira last night? She cried all night because of you. Drink all those bottles of liquor, the dozen or so bottles of wine, and get on your knees and apologize. I am severely allergic to alcohol. 5 years ago, I accidentally ate a dessert with fermented rice in it. He was so guilty he couldn't sleep the whole night. But now he was telling me to drink a dozen bottles of liquor. I touched my slightly swollen belly, my nails dug deep into my palms. I closed my eyes. Fine. I said I'll do it. Glass after glass of wine went down my throat, my abdomen cramped with pain. Red rashes began spreading all over my body. My stomach turned violently. Derek's friends watched with glee, egging me on. Hey, don't just drink. Where's the apology, right? Weren't you supposed to get on your knees and apologize to Mira? We're all watching. They pulled out their phones and started recording. My eyes burned. But to save my mother, I didn't hesitate. I dropped to my knees and apologized to Mira. I'll chug this whole bottle, I said. Consider it my apology to you. I pried the cap off and poured the liquor down my throat. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my abdomen. A warm gush followed blood trickling down my legs. My vision flickered and darkened. The people around me panicked, their faces tensed up. Blood. Why is she bleeding? You don't think she's pregnant? Do you? Derek's pupils contracted. He took half a step forward. Mira suddenly clutched her stomach. Her face went pale. Honey, she said, Evelyn doesn't look right. You should go check on her. Derek noticed something off about her. His hand reaching out midair dropped back to his side. No one, he said, is more important than the baby in your belly. My consciousness began to fade. The last thing I saw was him carrying Mira away in a hurry. When I opened my eyes again, a nurse frowned impatiently. You're 3 months pregnant. Your pregnancy had just stabilized. How could you drink that much hard liquor? The fetus didn't make it sign here. I stared at the ceiling, dazed. Derek loved children, but I had a hard time getting pregnant. I'd done countless rounds of IVF. None of them worked 2 years ago. I finally got pregnant. The doctor said the fetus was weak and could harm my body. Derek was so worried about me. He held me and said, We don't have to keep this baby, Evelyn. I just want you to be safe. I hid it from him. I got shot of pregnancy hormones, but in the end, I still lost the baby when he saw all the needle marks on my body. His eyes turned red. Evelyn, he said, how could you be so foolish? I was consumed with guilt for a long time. I thought I'd never have a child, and now, just after getting pregnant again, I drank so much that I lost it. I touched my flat stomach. Tears fell against my will. Maybe this was fate. I signed the papers, pulled out the IV, and went to my mother's hospital room. Mira was kneeling by my mother's bed, sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Madison. I was shameless. I seduced your daughter's boyfriend. I'll terminate this pregnancy. I'll leave Derek forever. My mother's eyes went wide. Her chest heaved with rage. That's impossible. Derek and Evelyn are getting married next month. How could you be carrying his child, you two? You actually got married. You? My mother's anger spiked. She collapsed to the floor. Mrs. Madison, Mrs. Madison. Are you okay? As Mira reached out to help, rage surged through me. I ran over and shoved her hard. What are you doing? Don't touch my mother. Mira flinched. I came to apologize, but I saw the flash of provocation in her eyes, enraged. I slapped her hard across the face. You knew my mother has a heart condition. You deliberately provoked her, Mira. You've stolen 2 boyfriends from me. Is that not enough now? You want my mother dead? Mira's cheeks swelled up, her eyes reddened with hurt. Evelyn. I didn't, she cried pitifully the next second. Derek had pulled her tightly into his arms. Derek glared at me. Evelyn, she's your best friend. How could you be so malicious toward her? Apologize to her. A bodyguard kicked me. They pinned me down. I knelt on the ground in agony. Evelyn, my mother's eyes were bloodshot. She grabbed Derek's sleeve. Derek, aren't you afraid of driving Evelyn away by doing this? Derek shook her off. He curled his lip into a sneer. Drive her away. A woman who's been used by another man? Who else would want her except me? His gaze went cold. Mira and I talked it over. Since they are best friends, she's willing to let your daughter be my mistress, besides you. The other woman yourself, like mother, like daughter. It's not like it would shame the family name, right? My mother's lips turned purple with rage. She pointed at Derek, struggling to breathe. She got a sudden heart attack and collapsed to the floor. Mom, I broke free from the bodyguards, terror on my face. I ran toward her doctor. Somebody, call a doctor. Mira tried to help me, but Derek stopped her. His voice was cold. Nobody helps her, let her suffer a little. Teach her a lesson. Then she'll know who actually cares about her. They walked away without a second glance. The blinding surgery light went on. Then it went off. The doctor announced my mother's death. I felt hollowed out, numb. I looked at everything with dead eyes. I walked to my mother's bedside, reached out and closed her eyes. I took the death certificate. Someone handed me and signed my name. My chest felt empty, like cold wind blowing through it after burying my mother's body. I dragged my suitcase to the curb and took a taxi to the airport. From this day on, Derek and I were done forever. The wheels of the regional jet left the tarmac with a low, heavy roar cutting through the thick gray fog of the city I was leaving behind. I leaned my head against the cold glass of the window, watching the lights of Clifton shrink into a sprawling grid of tiny amber dots before being swallowed by a dense layer of rain clouds. My body was cold, my bruised knee throbbing beneath my simple wool trousers. My abdomen felt hollow, a physical aching emptiness where my 3-month-old fetus had been only 24 hours ago. My mother's death certificate was tucked securely inside my canvas bag, the ink of my signature dry and final. The passenger next to me looked away, startled by the blank, vacant expression in my eyes. I didn't care. The woman who had wept, who had knelt on the concrete floor to apologize to Mira, and who had let Derek's friends treat her like a joke, had died on the floor of that VIP suite. 2 hours later, the plane landed in South City, the legendary financial capital of the country. I stepped out of the terminal into the private hangar area. A sleek midnight black sedan was parked near the tarmac, its headlights cutting through the damp darkness. Standing beside the open door was Julian Sterling. He was dressed in a tailored, dark charcoal overcoat, his tall, powerful frame radiating a quiet, absolute authority. His face was sharp, his dark eyes carrying a cold, penetrating intelligence. Julian was the undisputed king of South City's financial empire 2 years ago, during a high-profile corporate charity gala. He had looked at my historical restoration designs and offered me a contract marriage to secure his family's trust parameters. He needed a wife with a clean, flawless background, and in return, he promised me absolute protection and the resources of the Sterling Group. At the time, I had rejected him out of loyalty to Derek. I had believed Derek was my savior. Now Julian looked at my pale, sweat-streaked face, the faint scar on my knee, and the raw, hollow look in my eyes. He didn't ask any questions. He walked forward, took my worn suitcase with one hand, and wrapped his heavy, black cashmere coat around my cold shoulders. "You look like you've been through a war, Evelyn," he said, his voice deep calm and carrying an iron-cold weight. "I have, Julian," I said, my voice flat, "and I've lost everything." "You haven't lost everything," Julian said, holding the door open for me. "You still have me, and starting today, the Sterling Group's resources are entirely yours." I stepped into the warm, leather-scented car, the heavy door shutting out the cold, gray rain of the world forever. 3 months passed under Julian's care. I was moved to a private high-security medical facility in the hills of South City. The best orthopedic surgeons and neurologists reset my knee, treated my severe anemia, and helped my body recover from the forced miscarriage. I didn't waste my time weeping. I spent my afternoons in the facility's quiet library reviewing the financial sheets of The Whitley Group, specifically the logistics and shipping portfolios that Derek's family owned, Derek had built his empire on my silence. He had used my mother's medical trust as leverage to keep me submissive, and he had used my private designed blueprints to secure his company's primary contracts. But he had forgotten one thing: I had never signed the intellectual property waiver. The preliminary audit is complete, Evelyn Julian said, walking into the library of our private estate. He set a cup of warm chamomile tea on the table, his eyes checking my face with a quiet, unobtrusive concern, and I asked, looking up from my laptop, "Derek used your registered blueprints to secure the $30 million municipal transit project in Clifton." Julian said, his dark eyes carrying a quiet, lethal satisfaction. "But because he believed you were dead to the industry after your mother's passing, his legal department bypassed the final clearance. Check the contract is technically fraudulent." I looked at the digital drafts on my screen. They were my designs, the unique cantilevered glass architecture of the central terminal. "Let's file the injunction, Julian," I said, my voice carrying a quiet, terrifying strength. "And as for the private videos," he leaked, "let's have the Federal Cybercrimes Unit handle the digital forensics." "Already done," Julian said, his fingers brushing gently against my wrist, where the red marks of the bodyguard's ropes had long since healed into smooth, pale skin. "The warrants have been signed. The trap is set." The annual Metropolitan Business Association Gala was the most prestigious event of the year in Clifton. Derek arrived. He was dressed in his usual black tuxedo, but his face looked pale and thin, his shoulders slightly hunched under the weight of his stress. His company's stock had been volatile for weeks, and his ulcers were flaring up again beside him. Mira clung to his arm like a trophy. She was wearing a white silk gown, her hand constantly reaching up to touch her swollen stomach. She looked beautiful, but her eyes were constantly searching the room, trying to make sure everyone saw her standing next to the city's most powerful bachelor. "Don't worry," Derek, Mira whispered, her voice high and tight. "My father is speaking to the bank director tonight. We'll get the credit line." "I hope so," Derek muttered, his hand reaching down to rub his stomach. "The house feels cold. Mira, the staff said they can't find the medical records for your brother's heart transplant. Why did the hospital freeze the file?" "It's just a temporary audit, honey," Mira said, a flash of panic crossing her eyes. "Don't worry about it." Suddenly, the grand double doors of the ballroom swung open. The chatter in the hall died down, instantly replaced by a wave of hushed, shocked whispers. 2 rows of private security guards dressed in black suits entered the room, forming a protective corridor. Walking between them was a woman dressed in a magnificent, backless, midnight blue silk gown. Her hair was styled in an elegant, modern chignon, and her eyes carried a cold, absolute confidence that seemed to dominate the entire room. It was me beside. Me, dressed in a matching charcoal gray tuxedo, was Julian Sterling. He offered me his arm, and I took it with a grace that made the surrounding crowd murmur in disbelief. Evelyn Derek's hand shook so violently, his wineglass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the marble floor, splashing red wine across Mira's white dress. The reporters immediately descended on us, their cameras flashing wildly. "Ms. Madison, is it true that you've returned to the industry? Are you currently the chief executive director of the Sterling Group's new northern sector? Who is the gentleman beside you?" I stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at Derek. The blue bullet comments began to flash frantically in the air right above his head. "Oh my God. Evelyn looks stunning. Her beauty rating has jumped to 99. Mira looks like a cheap imitation next to her. Derek's regret value is spiking. Look at his eyes. He's completely frozen. Mira's system is screaming her luck. Points have just dropped into the negative zone." "Mr. Whitley," I said, my voice carrying a cold professional distance, "I am here on behalf of the Sterling Group. 10 minutes ago, the municipal court issued an emergency injunction against your transit project due to copyright infringement." Derek's face drained of all color. "Copyright infringement? Evelyn, what are you talking about? Those are our designs." "Those are my designs, Derek," I said, pointing to the holographic model on the display screen. "I registered the patent under my personal name 3 years ago. Before I even joined your company, you never secured the corporate transfer. The project is frozen." "Evelyn, please." Mira stepped forward, her voice trembling as she tried to play the fragile victim for the cameras. "How can you be so petty? Derek spent so much time on this project. If you're mad about your mother, we can talk about it privately. Don't ruin his career over a grudge." "A grudge?" I let out a soft, dry laugh. "Mira," I said, my voice dropping into a freezing whisper, "the police have already retrieved the medical records from the donor center. They found that the heart transplant your brother received was actually stolen from my mother's name, using a forged signature on the consent form, a signature Elias Vance forged with your help." Mira's eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated horror. She stumbled back, almost tripping over the hem of her white gown. The federal prosecutor has already signed the warrant. I continued looking directly into Derek's pale, sweating face. Your best friend didn't just survive an illness, Derek. She engineered it. She stole my mother's heart and let her die in the corridor to save her own brother. No, no, Derek. She's lying. Mira wailed, grabbing his lapels, her tears spilling over her hot cheeks. I was scared. My brother was dying. You said you'd always protect me. You, Derek whispered, his voice shaking with a terrifying, silent rage as he looked down at her. You took the heart. You let Evelyn's mother die. Derek, honey, listen to me. Slap Derek struck her across the face with a force that made her fall onto the marble floor, her white dress covered in mud and blood. The reporters in the auditorium went wild, their cameras capturing every detail of the collapse of the perfect couple. The legal battle was short, clinical, and absolute. The Whitley Group was officially declared bankrupt, its remaining assets acquired by the Sterling Group at a fraction of their value. Derek was sentenced to 10 years in a high-security state penitentiary for corporate fraud, medical extortion, and the distribution of private adult material without consent. Mira was sentenced to 15 years for her involvement in the medical forgery and the theft of the heart donor, her name permanently ruined in the city. They were left with absolutely nothing. On a cold, rainy evening, I stood by the window of the Sterling Group's new corporate headquarters in Clifton, a warm cup of coffee in my hand. The door to the private office opened, and Julian walked in a soft cashmere shawl in his hand. He draped it gently over my shoulders. Derek is outside, Julian said quietly. He's been waiting in the rain for hours. He refuses to leave until he sees you. Let's go down, I said. Julian held the black umbrella over me as we walked down the stone steps toward the gate. When Derek saw me, his eyes filled with a desperate manic hope. He threw himself onto his knees in the muddy snow of the street, his hands shaking as he clutched the wet, broken pieces of our old couple's photograph. Evelyn, Evelyn, please, he sobbed, his voice a dry, rattling whisper. I was wrong. I was so blind. Mira, she's a monster. She stole your mother's heart. I've already turned her over to the police. I've kicked her out of the villa. He looked up at me, his face pale and covered in frost, his tears freezing on his cheeks. I'll give you the villa, Evelyn. I'll sign everything over to you. Just please come back to me. Let's start. Over. We have 5 years of history. You can't just throw it away. I looked down at him. I looked at his bloodshot eyes, his trembling hands, and his broken pride. I felt no satisfaction. I felt no anger. I simply felt a clean, beautiful indifference, as if he were a complete stranger whose name I could barely remember. Derek, I said, my voice carrying clearly over the howling wind, the woman who would have knelt in the rain for you, died on the floor of that VIP suite 3 months ago. I don't love you anymore. I don't even hate you. I turned my back on him, walking up the steps with Julian. Our arms linked our steps light and free as the heavy iron gates of the estate locked him out in the cold forever. The spring had come to Clifton, washing the city in a bright, warm light. The Sterling Group's new historical design sector was officially launched. Its grand showroom, filled with my mother's restored collection, fully returned to her name and legacy. I stood on the balcony overlooking the lake, holding a cup of warm tea, watching the clear blue sky. Julian walked out onto the balcony dressed in a sharp gray suit. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing a flawless, custom-cut, blue sapphire ring, a ring shaped like a small, delicate wing. I spent 3 years waiting for the right moment, Evelyn, Julian said, his eyes warm and filled with a deep, quiet devotion. Will you marry me? I looked at the ring, then at his strong, steady hands, the hands that had held the umbrella for me when I was freezing, the hands that had put his own body on the line to protect me. Yes, Julian. I smiled, letting him slide the ring onto my finger. The gold-plated chains of my past had been completely destroyed, and the sky above us was finally beautifully mine.